Hello, this is Positive Vibes Enterprise. I am Tom Goodwin. This is Michelle Ronquillo.
Hi, everybody.
And the subject today is semantics, only words. And I'm sure a lot of people have, on the political scene, have seen all kinds of semantic wars going on where some people aren't very articulate when it comes to how they use words. And then there are the political correct people that jump on them and demonize them and do everything they can to to villainize them, even though they're, in a sense, you can tell certain things about people when they use words. And so it's a good way to figure them out. You can exaggerate or overplay things and really demonize people far beyond um, what is reasonable based on what they said. Some people just aren't the clearest in how they use their words.
Yeah, some people manipulate words and also go into gaslighting, which is using words in a way, to get people to doubt the validity of their own realities.
The thing is with language is that some people are more want to use language to destroy or discredit people, and they don't want to give people a chance to elaborate and express themselves more clearly later. And I think you should be humane in how you deal with people with language. You shouldn't use it to sort of like discredit them as human beings. So I feel like you always should allow for an escape valve. Can you explain yourself a little bit further? Did you really mean this? Did you really mean that? Don't be so quick to put people in a position they can't escape from. Why do you want to make people into terrible people and not allow them to get out of that label, to escape and make themselves out to be better people than you're presenting them? Why do you always, what I mean is there's too much of that going on in this world where they jump on people, and it's sort of like, you can say it's almost like a class type thing, where you're not in our class. We're classier than you because we use the right words. We know the emotions behind the words more clearly than you, the issues behind how people react to them. So therefore, we're in a class above you.
Yes, and it's important that the ones like me, I learned how to articulate and communicate at a later age in life when I started college. So as knowing the functions of what you want to say and having to say it 3 or 4 times to get it out, I can relate to those types of spiritual challenges, and I want the ones out there that are working on your voice to be confident and speak your words and articulate no matter what. Even if the bullies are out there, it's okay. The confidences of you and how you relate and communicate are very important.
I mean, sometimes you have to be clumsy before you become good at something. You have to start with what you have. And it's good for people to express themselves. You want people to just clam up and say nothing, and then, they'll try to explode and do something, and you will say, well, why did that person do that? I never heard that person say anything that expressed how they're seeing the world. Well, they may have been put in a position where people constantly attacked them, so they didn't let anybody know what was going on inside of them. And the only way you found out was when they exploded and did something terrible in the world. We don't need that. We need people to be able to be relaxed and be able to express themselves and to learn from their mistakes and figure out why people are reacting the way they are and how to become more sensitive or in tune to other people.
Exactly. When I grew up, my mother also, she would clam up because of the abuse she had in her life. So when she was trying to learn how to communicate, she would say, listen to what I mean and not what I say. So she wouldn't get offended by us taking it the wrong way. So it was a really tolerance and patience in that spiritual sense, that you listen to people, and then if you don't understand what they're saying, ask questions, because that's the key to the communication, understanding, and not bullying or assuming that that's what they meant.
And some people, they think they're so intellectually superior, so they're going to play a game, trip the person up using language.
Yeah, that's
And
not very nice.
I don't, and it's not going to work very well with somebody like me because I know that language isn't very good, and I see it from a spiritual angle. So I will just go after them when it comes to semantics and explain how lousy semantics actually works in the real world. That it's not a very good tool. That you have to understand that it's the best tool we have, but language is always evolving and it can always get better.
Yes.
Like I used the word concerted once, and it comes from the word concert, so it tends to have a image of a whole bunch of people working together, and I used it as an individual term that I was going to make a concerted effort to get to focus on something or whatever. I was going to get all my musicians within myself, so to speak, aligned. And that, so I took poetic license, you could say.
Yeah.
But words have to evolve. And with me, I'm an intuitive person, so I'm going to use words intuitively, and I know that they're clumsy because I deal with the spiritual, and the spiritual is more of an area that's similar to poetry in that you have, that the spiritual does not come in the standard language. That when you have dreams, that's how you tune into the spiritual, and it tends to be very symbolic. And working analogies and something. So when you're a spiritual person, you're not gonna use words with the same approach if that's where your focus is mainly on the spiritual, because that's a different area than the science.
Yes.
Science is going to have all the technical lingo and all that kind of stuff that a lot of people can't understand, that only certain people can understand. But when you deal with the spiritual, you've got to be able to reach everybody. You can't be using language that people can't relate to. So you get in a situation in this world and there's an emergency and somebody comes up to you and then you start using technical terms, it won't work.
Right.
You won't reach them. So you have to use words in a functional way to reach them. And that's why you can't get too caught up in getting technical with semantics, because the words are not that good. Sometimes you have to throw words out in a strange combination to get your point across.
Yes.
And that's what poetic license is. And basically, there are a lot of people that speak more like poets than like scientists. And that's okay.
Yes, and there's also the culture differences that we have here in America. I know that when immigrants and people come over and they try to understand America as slang, they have a little bit of a hard time. But the languages of what we are meaning, the spiritual intuition of what people are saying, that's usually the best survival method, that they pick it up quick and understand how to survive in the slang language of America and the way people communicate in today's society. But I think that it's important that you raise your awarenesses and your perceptions to slow down enough to give that perception, that idea, that communication a chance to sit in with you. And if you don't understand, ask the questions to get the clarity of what that person is trying to say.
And I'm a very unique person, an extremely unique person.
Yes.
And some people won't like the way I use that word because they say the word unique, that covers it. Doesn't have to have any intensity applied or degrees. They think that you just use it without degrees. But the thing is, what I tell people is everybody is unique. Everything is unique.
Yes.
So therefore, the word unique doesn't mean anything unless you can put it in degrees and contrast the uniqueness. And if you can't contrast it, I say the word's used to throw it out. And the thing is, when you evolve spiritual, you're going to see the world differently. You're going to sense things differently.
Yes.
And you're going to all of a sudden find out the language is really clumsy. It's not very good. And you do the best you can with a tool that is not a perfect tool. And that's the way I deal with it. And if somebody plays a technical game with me, I can be very rough on them because I can figure out the motivations that underlie them, because that's what I do. I'm spiritual. I deal with emotions. So I'll figure out what kind of game they're playing, because they are playing games usually when they do these word things on people trying to set a trap using words. It's usually a psychological reason they're doing it. And I'm into the psychology, the spiritual. So that's how I defend myself, and I can be very good at that because I know that words are only words. They only can do so much. They're the best we have. We have to become really good at it. And a lot of times words can be like a minefield when you're using words, because you have to understand that certain words are emotionally charged. They're related to emotional problems and social issues that are out there. And sometimes you can't use words at all, as you know. There are certain words that if you use them, you're discredited just by using them. And some of the words, there's some areas that are so charged with trauma, that it's so emotionally charged, that I just stay completely clear of even talking about certain subjects because they're raw. In other words, some type of event happened in this world and people are still feeling the trauma, and there's no way you can be that reasonable with the situation. So it's best not to go in there, because if they see I'm talking in a rational way about the situation, they'll say you're cold, you're out of touch, you're inhumane. So that's what I find. So part of being intuitive is sensing when not to even touch a subject, that a subject is untouchable, that it's best to stay clear of it.
Yes, definitely.
As I say, with the spiritual, it deals with images and symbols. It's sort of dreamlike. And when you deal with a psychic, you'll know that a psychic is never perfect, and they're gonna use that kind of language. And people will say, well, using that kind of language makes it easy for people to just it fit everybody, but it's not quite that simple. In other words, you would have to really study what the person's saying to the other person to really figure out how they're really keying in on the other person really well. So if you have a scientific perception of what's going on, you might not see it for what it's really doing, because the focus is on the emotional, spiritual level.
Yes, and being a psychic medium myself, I really pay attention to having the people understand in my readings that it's their perceptions, views, and rooted understandings of what's coming through that's important. You have to be a clear channel so you can allow spirits to be able to communicate on a level of the unique individual situation and persons, and not control it in a way of communicating what you think your perceptions are, but literally the raw understandings of what is coming through the channeling of the spirits for that person in the reading. So communication is very, very important when you're trying to get someone to understand a spiritual perception of change or habits or past, present, and future actions that can benefit them in their life.
And one of the things that with me, a lot of times people wouldn't listen to me, or they would be rushing to go someplace or whatever. And what I learned is to be really fast, to use language as quickly as I could, get to the point as fast as I could, and cut corners as much as I could. So a lot of times when people will be shutting me up when I've already got all my words out. In other words, I'll beat them to the punch. They're going to want to stop me from saying something, but the thing is, when you get really quick, you can send it out before the person can stop you. And that's the thing that I learned in order to be more effective in this world, because when you're unique like me, a lot of people don't want to hear what you have to say. So you have to become really good at it. And language is sort of an instinctual thing at a certain point. What it means, you study it, you get used to the words, but at a certain point it becomes intuitive. It's sort of like you learn a musical instrument, and at a certain point you're just intuitively working with it. The technical part goes to the wayside, and then you become more of a person that senses what will work and what won't work on an intuitive, instinctual level.
And I think it's important that everybody understands that you need to practice this communication, this language, this using your words and articulating things and thoughts and feelings. It's important that you practice every day and you get better at it. And the more you practice it with confidence of stumbling on words, knowing that the meaning and what you're feeling needs to get out. And it's important, even if you're stumbling, to make sure that communication is coming out.
And that's what how intuition is tested. It's sort of like, how do you know whether you're getting the right picture or sensing, or your psychic radar is working right, your spiritual radar is working right, unless you test it by expressing yourself and getting a reaction and seeing how accurate you are from another person's perspective.
Yes.
So that's how I'm very much into using meditative techniques to increase one's intuition in one's connection with reality on the spiritual level. And you can sharpen your intuition or develop it further that way, but you still have to test it. And you're not going to be good at it if you can develop it, but you won't be able to express it, meaning a lot of testing is testing how to use the right words or the right language, or to be able to express what you sense inside in a way that it can work in the outside world. We always have to work through language. We can't, or through knowing how to change what you're picking up.
Yes.
You have to figure out how to practically use it. It's one thing to sense how things are, and it's another thing to apply it to the real world.
Correct. That's a very good point. And I in my psychic medium readings, I really focus on people hearing people say, "You nailed it. That's right on. That's on mark. That's on point." Because to me, that's confirmation that my meditative trainings with Tom and my further evolvement of self is helping the clarity of what spirits are saying for people and their messages that are needing to come out and communicate. So it is practice makes the best evolvement.
Yes, language is tricky, and we have to figure it out. We have to try it out and see what the reactions are. And when it comes to the spiritual, you're never going to get anything perfect. It's always that you feel yourself. You try to get a good feel for what things are and get as close as you can to the target, but you're never going to be exact. You're never going to be precise, because the spiritual is just not like the physical.
Yes.
It's something that you try to get as close to the ballpark area that you know, close to being accurate as you can. And then it's, a lot of times it's just, well, how good do I have to be to deal with this situation? You only have to reach a certain degree of perfection in order to adequately deal with a situation. And you're wasting your energy if you got more perfection than the situation requires.
Yes.
Okay, this is Positive Vibes Enterprise. The subject was semantics, only words. I think we covered it pretty well. We appreciate you watching.
Yes, definitely. Please subscribe. Leave us comments. We love them.
And thank you very much.
Thank you.